Hey, thanks for connecting. I'm glad you're here. If we're friends on Facebook, that's on purpose. I hope you're doing well. I hope your family's well. Shoot me a line, comment, like the video, send me a private message. Let me know how you're doing. If the only thing that you have going on is struggle, let me in on it. I'm here to support you. I'm here to walk with you. We're in this together. I want to tell you a story about Jason and his first girlfriend. In our previous neighborhood, before we moved in the summer, there was a young girl who he had interest in. Feeling was mutual, and they began to develop a friendship that, had interest. And I don't know that they ever called themselves boyfriend and girlfriend, but the feelings were there. And then came the breakup. After we moved, feelings began to become distant. And then one day, Jason got a text. He got broken up with by his first girlfriend via text. So after helping Jason process the feelings of those, I began to help him kind of analyze what just happened, and how to interpret kind of the signals and what to do with this information now, how to move on, how to have closure. Pretty hard to get closure when somebody just texts you and says, essentially it's over, right? I don't know if you've ever been there. I sure hope you haven't, but that would suck. So I believe the words that she used were, "I do not know how to tell you this, but I have completely lost all feelings for you." And I believe she said in another chat bubble, "Let's still be friends." And so I wanted to analyze this with Jason. I thought there was a lot of good learning lessons in this. So let's break it down a little bit. I said to him, "What does she mean when she says, 'I don't know how to tell you this'?" We began to kind of go through that concept. The best thing I can figure, right? Like, people will say things to you and they'll be telling you what they mean. It's just sometimes hard to hear. So I don't know how to tell you this means something along the lines, my best guess, I'm experiencing a lot of inner turmoil. I don't want to say this. I feel anxiety at the thought of having to do this, but I need to do this. And so on one level, I really appreciate the staying true to your feelings component of this. I really wished her parents would have been able to offer a little guidance about the text thing. But I said to Jason, what she says, "I don't know how to tell you this," is that the whole story? And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I don't know how to tell you this could be easily solved with like a list, right? Like, should I tell him via text? No. Should I tell him over the phone? Probably not. Should I give him the opportunity to share how he feels? That would be helpful. Should I give him the opportunity to reflect before I make final conclusions about our relationship? That'd be helpful. Obviously, she's a 13-year-old girl and he's a 13-year-old boy, and between them, they didn't have those skills. But now, Jason can begin to get some new skills through this situation. So I said to him, she says she doesn't know how to tell you this, but did the way that she told you reflect, that she put effort into it? And he said, no. And I said, I would agree. I said, let's look at what she said in addition to this. She said, "I have completely lost all feelings for you." Do you see the words completely and all? I highlighted those on purpose because that is a really, really statement. That is it's so bad. It is so much. I am so overwhelmed. Like, it is kind of a statement of endearment, if you will, a statement to really solicit from you the understanding of the turmoil. But is it a true statement? I have completely lost all feelings for you. That was the question I posed to Jason. He said, well, no. And I said, well, why not? And he said, because feelings don't work like that. And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, well, feelings don't just go away. And I said, exactly. I said, what do they do? And he's like, well, they get smaller. And I said, yeah, they fade, right? They fade over time. And he says, yeah, that seems right. And I said, well, I can tell you that long-distance relationships aren't very sustainable for most people because of this reality. And he's like, okay, that makes sense. And I said, do you want to be in a relationship with somebody who will break up with you via text and no notice? And he said, no. And I said, do you want to be in a relationship with somebody who will not really demonstrate in their actions that they care for you? And he said, no. And I said, did this behavior surprise you? And he said, yes. She was so considerate. And I said, what made her considerate? And he said, she gave me a card on my birthday. And I said, well, that was nice. And he said, she also was concerned when I got bit by the dog. And I was like, yeah. I said, that could be a behavior of being considerate, right? He said, yes. And I said, could it also be a behavior of being interested in you? And he said, yes. And I said, could it be that she was interested in you and that motivated her to show those niceties to you, and that she's maybe not a very considerate person generally? And he was like, that's possible. And I said, did her breakup show consideration? He said, no. And I said, I think you have enough tools to figure out what you want out of a girlfriend. I said, you want to reflect on the things that people do with you. I said, if their choices are hurtful to you and they don't care, you should do something about that. And usually it's to let them know. And then usually if they're unwilling to adapt, to be considerate of you, you let them go. And so, these conversations have really been born out of a place of my own struggles. How do I pick a mate, right? Like, I couldn't imagine, I'm in my 30s now, I couldn't imagine dating. The world is smoke and mirrors, it feels like. You meet somebody online and it could take you years to find out who they really are. And maybe that's because we often don't have or don't practice a lot of the skills that would cause us to really figure out if these are healthy relationships or not quicker. I don't know if you're anything like me, but it took me a long time to really choose my friends. I used to pick friends because of proximity. I used to pick friends because of shared interests. I used to pick friends because of, being, in the same place, essentially. Moving on. What I've learned now is that there are a lot of things that I want in a friend. I want a friend who's willing to listen to me, even if they're frustrated. I want a friend who's not going to attack me, even if they're frustrated. I want a friend who is reachable with reason and logic and human decency. I don't want a friend who just talks over me or belittles me for having opinions or does any of the destructive things that I'm really seeing in this polarized society. But man, it's so hard to find that because I have had a lot of people who spent a lot of time learning how to look like a good friend. And the one reality that I keep cueing my son into, and it's the same one I go back to, is you cannot judge a person by what they say. Good or bad. I know that right now words seem to be the most important thing on everybody's mind. We need words of affirmation for the people who are disenfranchised, and we need words of, rebuke for the people who were on the other side of it. We need words to show how bad it really is. No. Talk is cheap. We need action. We need people who stop buying into the vote for me, I hate the other guy as much as you do. We need to stop hate. We need to stop intolerance. We need to stop aggression. And we need to start hearing each other. We need leaders who are going to stand up and host this conversation. We don't get to say, because you're white, you can't participate. or because you're black you can't participate. Everybody gets to participate. Judeo-Christian ethics are just as much a part of multiculturalism as indigenous studies are. They are just as much of multiculturalism as gay pride is. They are just as much acceptable and welcome in a society as anything else. And when we try to ostracize, rebuke, reject, or attack something we don't like, we become the problem. I believe that there's a lot of people in our world who are stuck in the spin of social media and mainstream media where they're just frothing at the mouth because of the way that they've been manipulated. Whether that be in support of one candidate or the other, I have been attacked more for just simply existing than ever before, and I'm sure you have too. Doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you identify on. I don't feel like most people identify on the spectrum, to be totally honest. I feel like most people get attacked by others and told that they are conservative or liberal or something in between. We live in a world of great deception. You have supercomputers pointed at your brains, manipulating us through social media. In the grocery store, they're telling us who we can purchase goods from and who we cannot. They're telling us where we can go and where we cannot. We need leaders to stand up and start speaking. We need leaders to stand up and start equipping others. We need leaders to stand up and be a voice for healthy, non-extremist change. We need to take steps in the right direction. If we start destroying everything that we have built in hopes of catching the cure for racism and so on, like if we just pull down enough this, or we destroy enough statues, or we defund enough police, we're going to have a better society. I tell you what, it'll never happen until we the people start treating each other better, until we're starting to be better brothers and sisters to each other, until we're starting to care for each other instead of attack each other, even if we're of differing viewpoints. I hope that something that I shared today was meaningful to you, and I look forward to telling you another story.